What is up, everyone? Welcome into the Fight HQ podcast as we are here to break down UFC 298. Of course, goes down tomorrow in Anaheim, California, headlined by the featherweight title fight. Alexander Volkanovski versus Ilia Topuria. Also, co-main event matchup, key matchup in the middleweight division. Robert Whittaker taking on Paulo Costa. Of course, I am Jason Floyd. That is the fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. As we're here to break down everything UFC 298 related. As always, we appreciate you taking time out of your day to download, listen, or if you're watching us live, we definitely appreciate it. Pete, how's it going, man?
What's going on, brother? Excited to have a good card, a frustrating card to break down, and try to figure out which side you want to play from a DFS betting and just a pick standpoint. But that means it's a good card. You know what I mean? Like it's pretty easy when these cards are lopsided, heavy favorites. But when you see competitive matchups throughout, it makes you have some unique picks.
Yeah, I will tell you, when I was putting together the Fight HQ contest earlier today, and I was just kind of putting a dummy lineup together, I was like, man, there's a lot of under 8,000 options, and I really found just hand building to be very simple. It's just a matter of who are some of those underdogs that you're going to get to. Of course, if you're first time checking us out, we'll break down each fight by fight. Then at the end of the show, we'll give you our straight up fight picks, and of course, we'll answer any questions that you may have. You can hit those up in the YouTube chat. You can also hit that in our Discord channel, which is totally free to join. Of course, I put the 2024 Fight HQ standings earlier today. Man, that guy who's in first place, that's a good looking dude.
Are you in first?
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah, I gotta switch up my strategy, and I think I got it this week. I think I'm gonna end up being in the top 3 because I know what you guys are doing in that contest.
Look, I use that contest as, for the most part, I just use it my cash mindset. You know, and
it's exactly what everybody's doing, and I'm over here GPP swinging away with single-digit freaking performers who give me like a 5, a 6, and a 7, and no matter how good the rest of my lineup is, it just can't catch up to you guys.
Of course, if you want to hop in that contest right now, the link is below right here on YouTube, or if you're listeners after the fact, it is there in the show notes on the podcast channels. And of course, we'll talk about everything related to this fight card. Of course, let's get right into game theory and talking about breaking down this card. I mean, to me, the game theory has got to start right at the main event because of the price point. When we're talking more on DraftKings than on FanDuel, they're 19, 18 respectively. But at 8,200, 8,000, to me, it's a hard fight to get away from when I'm building my lineups.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have a complete cop out here, and I'm gonna say it's a stackable week because I can't really decide who's going to win this bout. And truthfully, I actually can see it reaching the championship rounds, and I hope it does. I hope we don't see an early stoppage. And I would love to see the challenger get really tested in deep waters, and I would also love to see Alexander Volkanovski come back from suffering his first KO defeat in the UFC to, possibly reclaiming that throne as, he is the 145-pound GOAT. That's his rightful weight class, and he's a different fighter down here at 145. So from a construction standpoint, I totally agree. I think it's a unique way to get different is avoiding the main event, but I don't know, man. Unless we get a 10-8 round somewhere in there and this somehow becomes a draw and nobody gets the win bonus, I don't see how the winner doesn't bust the slate. Like, truthfully, I think that 8,200, 8,000, they are just at a broken price tag given the 5-round nature and given the skills. I mean, very, very high fight IQ, high skills. I'm excited for it, and it's one of the best matchups we've seen in a long time.
And if you've not heard the news, we have lost one fight today. That'll be the heavyweight matchup between Rogerio de Lima and Justin Tafa. So that one is off the card. But when I look at the rest of this card and looking at what the projections are right now, there's certain fights that, and me and Pete were talking before the show, if you told me if Merab and Cejudo was a 5-round fight, I would be much more interested in the favor in Merab in there because we know what Merab does. You look at the Peter Yan fight, he had 49 takedown attempts in 5 rounds. He got him down 11 times. So if that was a 5-round fight, I'd be much more interested in it. Don't really love it as a 3-round fight if I'm going Merab. I think it's one of those fights that I would want to get to more Henry Cejudo than Merab. And, Cejudo said some interesting things this week. And, you kind of do wonder if he doesn't get the victory, are we going to see a retirement right after this fight is over? So we'll see what happens there. Then, I look at the Hernandez and Kopylov fight, and obviously we'll break down this a little bit more. But, like, if you tell me Anthony Hernandez utilizes grappling, I love him at 8,800 price tag.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I think that he possesses that Merab type of quality about the card. Even though Kopylov has improved on his takedown defense, in early in the UFC, it was not good against Carl Roberson. It was not good. It was out grappled by Carl Roberson. It was not nearly the type of grappler that
Yep.
Anthony Hernandez is. You had Albert Duraev do the same thing to him. So I mean, like from a grappling upside. It's clearly Rinya Nakamura at the top for me, which is a great spend up. It's just, can you find that money? Anthony Hernandez, and Merab Dvalishvilli normally would be in that category, but you're going up against an Olympic wrestler who I still think can get taken down, but I think can make adjustments. And I think Henry will get taken down, and he'll make some adjustments, which will somewhat limit the upside of Merab, typically the guy who's going to smash the slate. But I just don't see in a 3-round atmosphere how he gets enough against a like super high caliber guy, unless he's just complete offense, zero defense the entire time.
Yeah, but I'll say this: like there is the 7,000 options. The 7,000 options this week are intriguing to me. Geoff Neal is an intriguing 7,000 option to me. I mean, when you look at that, we always talk about that 73 and below. Like, to me, the two that really stick out to me would be Geoff Neal and Paulo Costa.
Yeah, I think everybody's going to be on the Geoff Neal underdog shot, just because we've seen Garry get dropped in UFC. We've seen him get rocked, hurt, and also a lot of people just don't like him, so they want to see him lose. I think from the outside, though, Garry does possess all the skills to keep Geoff Neal away from him. But yeah, it's a hell of an underdog, guy who's fought and won against equal opposition of Garry. So styles make fights. We'll have to see if he can land that big left hand. Against plotting fighters that don't really have good movement, he's able to capitalize and land those shots. But like a guy like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, who had great movement, and Garry moves a little bit like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. We'll see if he can capitalize. But yeah, I like Paulo Costa down at the bottom. Kopilov's going to be a hell of an underdog. The complete dart throws of Woodburn and Vera, I would cross off Vera and probably consider a puncher's chance for Woodburn, even though if Jason disagrees with me.
Yeah, there are some interesting underdog shots here this week. We'll get into it. Of course, as always, we appreciate you tuning in. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're not subscribed to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that thumbs up button. That really does appreciate it. Of course, be sure to leave a comment, and we'll get to all those questions at the end of the show. But Pete, let's get right into it. We got the main event. Alexander Volkanovski taking on Ilia Topuria, and I think we can all say confidence is not an issue for Ilia Topuria. He is a very confident fighter heading into this one. He is a slight betting underdog at plus 105. Volkanovski minus 125. As we mentioned, this price point, $8,200 for Volk on DK, $8,000 for Topuria. And then over on FanDuel, Volk is $19 and $18 for Topuria. Pete, break it down for us.
Yeah, so I mean, we have one of the most complete fighters in Alexander Volkanovski, looking to return, coming fresh off a knockout loss back in October to Islam Makhachev, where he took the fight on short notice. Mentioned that he was doing some uncharacteristic type of things in his free time, and not necessarily being in the gym and being fight ready, despite Islam Makhachev having a fight coming up. So, like, I'm happy to see him back at his rightful weight class, and I'm happy to see him, refocused with a full camp. You take a gamble, you take a shot, and it doesn't turn out. In the first encounter against Islam Makhachev, he put up a hell of a fight, and he was able to, reverse some positions, even though he got controlled from the back. But he put Islam in some spots where we haven't seen him before. He rebounded off of that defeat to Yair Rodriguez, where, he just completely mollywopped the striker and, dealt with the kicks really well, was sharp defensively, and just put a complete game where mixing in the wrestling, 7 of 12 takedowns, really tax Yair Rodriguez, and the ground and pound is something that I think needs to be spoken for when it comes to Alexander Volkanovski. When he takes people down, he has some of the most vicious ground and pound in the game, and it's just a matter of, do you break over time? And the pace that he possesses is crazy, and you can put him in bad positions. If you do not shut off his lights, he's going to still be there, bell after bell. So, do I like the fact that he's coming back 6 months later after getting knocked out? No, I actually think that he should have taken more time off. but it's the balance of trying to get back into competition during your peak, and balancing the damage that you just sustained from a head kick from Islam Makhachev. Um, in a perfect world, I wish that he would have taken more time, right? But now he's going up against one of the most exciting prospects in Ilia Topuria that the featherweight division has seen in a very long time. Debuting against Youssef Zalal, who I think is a very solid fighter, and probably doesn't get the credit that he deserves. And I wish he was still in the UFC, or maybe he is. I don't. I like Youssef Zalal, but then knocking out 3 opponents back to back to back: Damon Jackson, Ryan Hall, and Jai Herbert. Even going through that Jai Herbert fight, getting knocked down with the head kick, dealing with adversity. You saw Ilia Topuria make some adjustments, and his boxing is the difference maker here. He's the crisper puncher between Alexander Volkanovski and Ilia Topuria. The punches are tight. The combinations are great. He goes from the head to the body back upstairs. So like he changes levels really well, and he varies his attack. He's not a headhunter. And when you dig to the body, you're going to hurt him to the body, or you're going to open up your headshots. And just look at Ilia Topuria's highlight reel. It's amazing. He brutalized Bryce Mitchell and beat the hell out of Josh Emmett over 5 rounds, which I think is important, because last week we saw Joe Pyfer get tested in his first 5-round bout against Jack Hermanson and looked really dangerous early on, as he's he's an early round finisher. But then as the fight got extended, you see it start to favor the veteran, the guy who's been there before. Ilia Topuria has a 5-round bout in his bag, and that's against Josh Emmett. The only difference is that there wasn't a lot of resistance in that fight. It was competitive in moments, but like he wasn't getting taxed, and he wasn't necessarily having to work. I just think, right, like I'm going to slightly lean still with Alexander Volkanovski, even if there are massive red flags for me. There are, the chin red flag, also his exits on his striking exchanges. His hands are down, his chin's up in the air. We've seen him get knocked down by punches against Islam Makhachev, knocked out with the head kick. We've seen him get put on his back numerous times, one time by Chad Mendes. Do I think Ilia Topuria has the power to knock out Alexander Volkanovski? 100%. But when the going gets tough and your opponent is pushing you to your wit's end, can you dig deep? Can you dig deep from adversity? We've seen Ilia Topuria dig deep and come back a little bit, but I almost feel like that gas tank can be broken. And I'm slightly going to lean towards Alexander Volkanovski, even though leading up until this week, I was a big Topuria guy, and I was thinking he's going to knock out Volkanovski. I just do think that the complete game, if Alex mixes it up and makes Topuria wrestle just to expend his energy, I think this will be a competitive fight until Volk takes over late. If he just tends to strike, I do think that Topuria knocks him out. So it's a lovely matchup for DFS. Get a hold of it in all of your lineups, or 90% of your lineups. Stack it in some of them. But yeah, I'll slightly lean towards the champ, one of the pound-for-pound greatest fighters we've ever seen.
Before I kind of get into my thoughts of this matchup, I want to mention something. Kudos to Lone Wolf throwing this out there in the chat. Mike Baum, MMA Junkie, is reporting that the UFC is finalizing having Junior Tafa, Justin Tafa's brother, step in on a day's notice to fight Marcus Rogerio de Lima.
What in the hell?
Yeah, so that. Yeah, so.
Oh God.
you
no, that's fake.
Yeah. So on the main event, by the way, and one of the things when we talk about Volkanovski heading in this one is typically when you look at fighters at his age in lighter weight classes, this is typically when we start to see, things start to fall apart a little bit. And Volk has really embraced this week. I mean, just how do you not love Volkanovski in this one? But, I think the one question I do have is, is it the chin issues? Was it more about being up a weight class, fighting guys who are just much bigger than him coming down here? But I think it's one of these things, if you're playing multi-entries, I think you got to have 35-40% of each fighter.
Yeah, at least. I'm probably 55-45. And, I could see it going either way, Jason. I really can. I do think that there's a world where Alexander Volkanovski uses his clinch, puts him against the cage, and weighs on him in there to kind of just sap the energy out the first couple rounds. Because I do think that over 5 rounds, you don't punch as hard. You can't have the same power and same exertion from round 1 to round 5. So that's the strategy I would implement as a coach, is just, stay on the outside. If he closes the gap, pin him to the cage, weigh on him, dirty box, clinch fight with him, zap some of that energy, make him grapple offensively and defensively, and then we take over 3, 4, 5. And it's like, that's the vet way. Like, look what Hermanson did. That's exactly what Hermanson did. The only thing here is that we have a massive chin issue with Volkanovski coming off a recent knockout. And in addition to that, you do see some of the defensive flaws that, despite being one of the best pound-for-pound fighters out there, he's making some technical errors exiting with his hands low. So, I mean, who am I to critique one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world? But I'm just saying, Topuria cracks really, really hard. And if there's a guy in the division to knock out Volk, it's him.
Looking over at Prize Picks, we have 3 props up on Volkanovski. Significant strikes, 85.5. Fight time, 18.5. And fantasy score of 92.5. I would say if I was going to attack this one, I'd probably look at the fight time more than anything else, of going more than 18.5 minutes. Look, if you think this thing's going to go 25 minutes, I think he'll go over the 85.5 significant strikes. I really wouldn't want to touch the fantasy score. I'd either go the fight time prop or the significant strike prop.
Yeah. I'm with you. I think that it's starting to seem like it's going to go 25 minutes. And then how do you not favor, the champ in a situation like that? I mean, they're both so damn tough. So I do like the over on the fight time.
And I would say this, if you think this thing's going to go 25 minutes in cash, I do not mind stacking this fight.
I don't mind. I mean, listen, we could have an absolute war where they're both tested and dropped, and like they could both have 70 plus points. Yeah. I will take that all day long at 8,200 and 8,000.
No doubt about it. Let's move over to the co-main event. You got Robert Whittaker taking on Paulo Costa. Robert Whittaker is a minus 240 betting favorite, plus 195 for Paulo Costa. Costa 7,200 on DK, $12 on FanDuel. And for Whittaker, he's 9,000 on DK and $21 on FanDuel, Pete.
Yeah, so, I mean, another interesting matchup, right? We have Robert Whittaker, former champ, ultimate gatekeeper as well within the division, where it's like, all right, let's see how legitimate you are. Give him the Robert Whittaker assignment. Can you pass it? Not many have. You know what I mean? Not many fighters have. Dricus du Plessis did. Israel Adesanya did twice. Outside of that, he's dominated this division. So, I mean, how the hell can you, pass on Robert Whittaker? The issue, though, is that the method and how he lost to Dricus du Plessis. I mean, it was Dricus du Plessis switches stances so often, and then when he switched stances again, he threw that right hand really heavy from the lead. So it's kind of odd to get dropped by a jab, but it's also just showing how powerful Dricus is and how tricky and awkward. And I think the awkwardness is what resulted in that knockout. My issue, though, is that, like, Robert Whittaker, I feel like just gets by a lot in a lot of his fights. Like, they're really close, and he's somewhat playing with fire. He used to utilize like a low hands karate type of style. I just don't like that unless and I come from a karate background, but like there needs to be time when you are in danger zone where you need to bring your hands up. Like I do not like the tall guy defense, leaning back, head beyond your knees. You get hit with anything, you get planted on your backside. So I might be on an island. I would love Robert Whittaker a lot more if I knew he was going to lace up those wrestling shoes. And that's what I actually thought he could do against Dricus du Plessis, is just possibly tax the gas tank of Dricus. And that was, that was when I also thought Dricus had really bad cardio prior to his deviated septum surgery. But like I liked when I saw Robert Whittaker go to the takedown well against Israel Adesanya over 25 minutes, attempt 10. Against Darren Till, attempted 13. Even if he's not having the best success, at least he's attempting, because I do think that his grappling is super underrated. The issue here is that he's going up against a guy in Paulo Costa who's possibly the biggest wild card on the slate, a guy who's pulled out of more fights than he's actually competed in the UFC, and a guy who's coming off of a layoff from an August 2022 banger against Luke Rockhold up in Elevation. Was that performance impressive? When he throws combinations and he's aggressive, he's absolutely impressive. The fact that Luke Rockhold took that on somewhat short notice after being absent from the UFC and was still there, huffing and puffing, hands on his knees, and you weren't able to get rid of, Luke Rockhold, who has been chinny at times. It was a little interesting to me that we didn't see Costa pick up the finish. But I will tell you what, I've been watching Costa train, Jason. Costa is an animal. He looks great. And the one thing is that he can defend takedowns with his strength, and he's actually got some underrated takedown defense. He's very, very powerful with his combinations, and I'm seeing him utilize a lot of his head kicks. You got to think, he's coming off of back-to-back camps where he actually trained full go for Khamzat Chimaev, and then in addition to that, now is accepting this fight against Robert Whittaker. So I may be on an island, Jason, but like if the odds were closer, then I'd probably be going with Robert Whittaker. I just think that there's value on Paulo Costa. I think this is going to be a 15-minute war, and then you're going to see who inflicted the most damage. And I actually think it's going to be Paulo Costa. The worry is obviously the Robert Whittaker jab. He jabs everybody's face. But I do think that Paulo's going to have an answer for it. So down there at 7,200, I'm going to start with an underdog in the co-main event with Paulo Costa.
You know the last time Paulo Costa fought multiple times in a calendar year?
Shoot, I don't even know. Ultimate Fighter?
2017. Give you another stat on Paulo Costa. You know how many wins he has against current UFC fighters? Zero.
Yeah.
His UFC wins: Garrett McLennan, Bambuse, Hendricks, Uriah, Romero, Rockhold.
Yeah, no, I mean, I see it. I totally get it. I really do. It's a tough task, right? I just do think that Robert Whittaker's, starting to be in the conversation about his chin as well. You know what I mean? Like, he's been dropped and hurt numerous times. I thought Darren Till was going to do it to him. They hurt each other in that contest. I actually think Paulo Costa can knock him out here.
You know what I think is a crazy stat about Robert Whittaker?
You
realize he's only 33 years old?
Yeah, I don't know how. I mean, he's younger than me. I'm over here looking at who the hell he's fought and what he's accomplished in the UFC, and then I'm like, dude, what the hell am I doing over here? And this guy, he's still playing video games, and I'm like, how the hell is he so young? I remember being in Buffalo Wild Wings when he fought Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, and Wonderboy beat the hell out of him. And I can't believe it that some of these guys are younger than me.
Yeah, when I was doing my show the other day, I had his Wikipedia pulled up, and I was like, wow, he's only 33? I would have thought he was 35, 36 years old just because of how long he's been in the UFC. Right. I will say this, like, I think when you're looking at a leverage play, Whittaker could be that leverage play when we're talking about those high-end options, because there's other fighters that a lot of people are going to get to in multi-entry contests. If you think Robert Whittaker is going to utilize his grappling, maybe get a second, maybe a third-round finish, he could be a guy that might be a little bit of a sneaky play this week.
Yeah, he definitely could. I mean, I just don't – how does he finish Paulo Costa? I just don't see it. Like, I don't know. I don't view Robert Whittaker as a power striker. I think that he's very crisp. I think that he's very well-rounded. I don't know, man. He doesn't use his grappling enough to work towards a submission. And I actually think that he's gun-shy because he's worried about getting knocked out.
And I'll say this on Prize Picks, I really don't love the props they have on Whittaker. A significant strike, 63.5. Fight time, 14 3/4. Fantasy score, 87.5. Personally, I would be looking to go somewhere else as opposed to attacking this fight on Prize Picks.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Let's move over to our next matchup. We got a welterweight matchup. Geoff Neal taking on Ian Machado. Garry is the favorite in this one, minus 235. For Geoff Neal, he's plus 190. Neal, 7,100 on DK, $11 on FanDuel. And for Garry, he's 9,100 on DK and $20 on FanDuel, Pete.
Yeah, so Geoff Neal could be fool's gold, right? Like, he could be fool's gold where everybody's just looking for that underdog to come through, and he's going to be the popular one against the hyped up prospect and Ian Garry that nobody likes. And it's crazy how, from fight to fight, just the MMA masses can change with their opinion towards you. And my God, is he getting booed? I do think that Ian Garry is actually really skilled. Like, I think that the combinations we see this kid throw, I've watched him train, and he's very, very talented on the feet. Defensively, there are some issues, though, and You get away with it in training, and you get away with it sometimes in your fights, but somebody eventually is going to make you pay. And the issues that I'm, referencing are the tall guy defense, like leaning back and just leaning out of the way, out of range from your, opponent's shots. You can only do that so many times before somebody's going to capitalize with your hands down. There's a way to do it. You need to pull and angle off, keep your chin tucked. But the way that he sticks his chin up in the air as he's fading back, somebody's just going to close the distance, or they're going to shift into space, and then they're going to touch that chin. Geoff Neal can land that left hand, and when he lands that left hand, my goodness, can you take it? I don't know if you can take it. So I don't hate the underdog call here at all. The issue, though, is that, Geoff Neal has almost been gun-shy at times to let his hands go in some contests. Like, I remember when Wonder Boy was fighting him, like, he was just kind of dancing circles around him, picking him apart. I can see a similar fight where Garry stays on the outside, uses his legs to keep, Geoff Neal away from him, rip the right leg to the body, rip the right leg to the head, the knees straight up the middle. So, like, there's a world where Garry actually knocks out Geoff Neal here, whereas everybody's hoping for the opposite. I'm going to say that there is value on Geoff Neal, but my prediction for the fight is that Garry, in a 15-minute fight, does enough to stay out of harm's way and, gets another decision victory over a tough opponent in Geoff Neal, just from being too rangy. Not necessarily being long, but just being too rangy with his attacks, straight kicks, straight punches, lateral movement. So give me Garry at 9,100. Not a priority from a DFS standpoint, but would a high score from either one of these guys shock me? No, it wouldn't. But I'm going to side with Garry here.
And kind of go back on what I mentioned about Robert Whittaker. If you're looking to get a little bit of a leverage spot on these high 9-in options, Garry is one of those guys here. One of my things about Garry is it's become very evident to me. This is a guy who can dish out the trash talk. He can't take it. It's become very clear this week, and it's going to be interesting. And I don't mind, taking a shot here on Geoff Neal, particularly if you're just looking for that low end option. I mean, Pete, you talk about this every week on the show. Is can you find someone at low end that might get you 40, 50 points, even in a loss? And right. I mean, now, but the problem is I'm expecting this fight to be on the feet. I think it goes to decision. So I just don't know, in a losing effort, how can Geoff Neal get to 50 points or even say 45 points?
Yeah, it's going to be a little tough, right? Against Shavkat Rakhmonov, which ended in the third round, almost went the whole 15 minutes. He scored 29 fantasy points. So, I mean, that's impressive. This is the same guy. Geoff Neal did lose to Neil Magny. You know what I mean? So, like, I do think that styles make fights, obviously. I just think that Garry's a hell of a lot better than Neil Magny, as evidence in their fight. And he's a rangy guy. So as far as a bottom end option in a loss, Geoff Neal would not be the guy that I'd be looking at. There's a couple people in a loss that I'll get to that could possibly do enough and just give us the high end combination of top end fighters that just absolutely crush. So yeah, give me Garry to win a decision here.
Give you a little update. Junior Tafa has stepped on a scale, made weight at 249 pounds. The fight is going to go. And by the way, he was preparing for a fight next month against Carl Williams.
Oh, shoot. Okay, so hold on. Let's so I'm ingesting everything you're saying right now.
Mm-hmm.
Carl Williams is a grappling specialist.
Yep.
And that would have been a nightmare matchup for Junior. Is it Junior?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know why he accepted a fight against Carl Williams. That to me is a bad fight to take for him.
Terrible fight. But let's think about this, right? So if he is preparing for a guy in Carl Williams, he better be watching tape and better be doing takedown defense. Because what do I think Rogerio de Lima is actually going to try to do to Justin Tafa, which is now Junior Tafa, is not get hit with that big left hand, pin him to the cage, and possibly mix in some takedowns as the big guy from American Top Team. Especially when you just got hit with a flying knee from Derek Lewis and half your teeth went through went through your jaw. So like, um, this is the curveball we did not need for this card. I'll tell you that. I'm not really happy with this.
Yeah, and that is going to be interesting to see where ownership goes with that matchup. Let's move over to our next matchup. We got Merab Dvalishvilli taking on Henry Cejudo. Cejudo is a plus 195 betting underdog, minus 240 for Merab. Merab, $8,600 on DK, $17 on FanDuel. And for Cejudo, he's $7,600 on DK and $13 on FanDuel, Pete.
Yeah, so Merab Dvalishvilli is a pace pusher, tremendous wrestler, tremendous outwork, output and crazy work ethic. And just goes nuts from the opening bell to the closing bell. So if you are not in shape, he's going to break you. And that's why, like we saw Peter Yan just get completely dismantled over 25 minutes. In a 3-round atmosphere, we have seen him not reach his ceiling. And what I mean by that is when he's fought tough competition, like Jose Aldo, we've seen even John Dodson, guys with solid takedown defense. Jose Aldo with some of the best ever. He went 0 of 16 in the takedown department. He went 2 of 20 against John Dodson. So there's a world where he gets Henry Cejudo to the mat a couple times. Cejudo makes some adjustments, but just cannot get away from the swarm of Merab Dvalishvilli, from the volume striking, the clinching, the activity. And in the judge's eyes, it's like, dude, this guy's doing everything, and Cejudo's doing nothing but defending. Defense is its own reward, and I don't think that Cejudo is going to do enough. Sure, he could capitalize and land some calf kicks that could possibly debilitate Dvalishvilli. He can land a knee up the middle to knock him out, or a big right hand. I just haven't seen a lot from Henry Cejudo that gives me some confidence in a matchup like this. In an MMA fight, I think Merab's the better wrestler, and I think he's the better MMA fighter here. So I think it's passing of the torch, and we're going to see Merab Dvalishvilli get a decision victory. But I actually think that it could be a trap where his salary is, because everybody's going to flock to him looking at the box scores. And I might be underweight. I truly might be underweight this week, just because the likelihood is it goes 15 minutes, and Cejudo will have a defensive game plan, at least for some of them. So I think it's going to cap the upside of Dvalishvilli, who will probably score 80 points.
Yeah, if this was a 5-round fight, I'd be much more interested in Merab, just because of, and I made this point on my podcast earlier this week. I said, if Aljo was able to get Henry Cejudo down 4 times, how many times do you think Merab could get him down in a 5-round fight? My just fear is, in a 3-round fight, what is the ceiling for Merab in a decision victory? And that's where I look at some other fighters kind of in that same salary area, like a guy we're going to talk about, next, Anthony Hernandez, and I see the finishing upside in that type of fight. Or, there's other fighters in that same area I look at, but to me, Merab is a play. Over on Prize Picks, his takedown prop is 3.5. If you're going to play that, you have to play the more. I just don't think you can play the less, because you just know the takedown attempts are coming. It's coming. And, and you kind of, when you listen to what Henry has said, leading up to this fight, I get what he's saying, but I'm also kind of wondering about, are we on the verge of one foot's already out the door?
Oh, it's been like that, man. He's just trying to stay relevant. I'm not a Cejudo guy. I love seeing athletes compete until they decide to call it quits. The king of cringe has expired, and I just do not enjoy his antics. But I will say that he's a very talented mixed martial artist and can make this. He could win this fight. He could be the underdog that actually wins, because he has the wrestling pedigree to shut down Merab. And then it comes down to volume striking of Merab versus possibly precision striking of Henry Cejudo. But I'm still going to be picking the activity in Merab to win.
Yeah, I'm with you there on that one. Then our opening fight of the pay-per-view, we got Anthony Hernandez taking on Roman Kopylov. Kopylov is a plus 200 betting underdog, minus 245 for Hernandez. Hernandez is 8,800 on DK, $20 on FanDuel. Kopylov, 7,400 on DK, and $11 on FanDuel, Pete.
Really difficult fight, because it's going to go one of two ways, right? You're going to see Roman Kopylov knock out Anthony Hernandez, or you're going to see Anthony Hernandez ragdoll Roman Kopylov, or attempt to ragdoll him and drown him in deep water. Man, the pace that Anthony Hernandez pushes, it's Merab-esque. It really is. And for the middleweight division, these guys can't keep up. we've seen time and time again, he just breaks people. I mean, it started with Josh Fremd, where he landed 8 of 11 takedowns. And in a 15-minute fight, that's a lot. 8 of 14 takedowns against Marc-Andre Barriault, 6 of 15 against Edmund Shabazian, was able to pick up the finish in the third round against Marc-Andre Barriault and Edmund Shabazian. I do think that this fight actually goes the distance. And I think that the 8,800 Anthony Hernandez is a solid upper tier option. Had a full camp. Kopylov accepting this on shorter notice than a full camp. Training out of Dagestan, and Kopylov has improved since what we saw early on, getting out grappled and submitted in the third round against Karl Roberson, which is a terrible look, mind you. And then following that up with a decision defeat to Albert Duraev, who just in periods was able to put him in bad spots and tax the gas tank and out wrestle him and out grapple him. 4 KO streak over Alessio Di Chirico, Punahele Soriano, Claudio Ribeiro, and Josh Fremd. All those guys I mentioned did not really try to offensively grapple Roman Kopylov. I thought Punahele Soriano was going to, and then when he decided to, it was too late and he was getting battered. But Di Chirico, Ribeiro, and Fremd all enjoy striking on the outside. Whereas I don't think Anthony Hernandez does. I think that he knows what he needs to do. Mm-hmm. He knows that he needs to grapple. Junghyun Park, 6 of 9 in the takedown department. Yeah, I'm going to be siding with Anthony Hernandez here in a 15-minute war. But I think that, his skills that he possesses is going to lead to a very high fantasy score. So give me Anthony Hernandez here at 8,800. Do I hate the Kopylov underdog pick? No, not at all. I was almost leaning in that way, but Hernandez is susceptible to body shots, as evidenced in the Kevin Holland fight. The knee to the body with the elbows, and Kopylov possesses a phenomenal left kick and left knee. Can happen, but I think that it's a pretty simple strategy. Crowd the kicker, and I think Hernandez is going to crowd the kicker.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those fights where I think for GPP, you might need to make this a priority fight, just because if Hernandez is able to go the grappling route, you see where he could get a massive score. But also, I do like the underdog shot of Roman Kopylov. If he can keep this fight on the feet, makes it a striking match. You mentioned about that body shot, but it's when I look at it. You look at Prize Picks, you've got 4 props on Anthony Hernandez. Significant strikes, 38.5. Fight time, 9 3/4. Takedown, 2.5. Fantasy score, 87.5. The fight time and the takedown props are the ones that really do stick out to me in terms of this one, and I would look to go more on both of those. I would probably more favor the fight time over the takedown prop, just because you hope that he does go the grappling route in that one. Then our feature prelim is a female matchup, which was initially supposed to be Amanda Lemos taking on Tatiana Suarez. Suarez had to pull out due to an injury, so Mackenzie Dern is stepping in to take on Amanda Lemos. Lemos is a minus 135 betting favorite, plus 115 for Mackenzie Dern. Dern is 7,900 DK, $14 on FanDuel, and for Lemos, she's 8,300 on DK and $16 on FanDuel.
Yeah, I really like this fight for Amanda Lemos, I'm being honest, and I have questions and concerns for both sides. Amanda Lemos got completely dominated against Zhang Weili in the 5-round bout, but she did go 5 rounds with Zhang Weili, which she only scored 11 fantasy points in 25 minutes, which is quite embarrassing. But I'll tell you what this girl possesses, and she possesses devastating power. 0 wrestling and ground game in comparison to Zhang Weili. But she does have offensive jiu-jitsu. It's just defensively, I do worry about her getting put in a submission. I just don't think that Mackenzie Dern has the necessary wrestling to get the fight where she needs to go. I've been saying it, she attempts takedowns over and over. 2 of 11 against Yan Xiaonan, 3 of 9 against Angela Hill, 0 of 4 against Jessica Andrade. Jiu-jitsu fighters tend to struggle when it comes to takedowns unless they come from a wrestling background also, or unless they have a wrestling coach that really hammers home how to get takedowns. When the fight hits the mat, they're fine, but it's getting to the mat where I think Amanda Lemos absolutely got dominated against Zhang Weili, and then preparing for Tatiana Suarez. You know what she's preparing to do, preparing to sprawl and brawl, okay, like her life depends on it. There's no way that you can compare the takedowns of Tatiana Suarez to Mackenzie Dern. The jiu-jitsu skills are better for Dern, yes. But I actually have legitimate questions and concerns about Mackenzie Dern. In a lot of these fights you're seeing outside the Angela Hill performance, which was excellent. Marina Rodriguez loss. Most likely, in my opinion, lost that fight to Tisha Torres. Lost to Yan Xiaonan. Got completely embarrassed to Jessica Andrade, who was just too powerful for her, too strong. Shrugged her off, knocked her down time and time again. Proved how big of a gap there is in the striking between Mackenzie Dern and Jessica Andrade. There's the same gap in striking between Mackenzie Dern and Amanda Lemos. Amanda Lemos possesses some crazy power, and Mackenzie Dern just took a hell of a beating back in November of 2023. And accepting this on short notice, I just don't like it. I really don't like it. I'm surprised Amanda isn't a bigger favorite, in my opinion. Could Mackenzie sub her quick? Absolutely. But I actually think that all the things I mentioned, losing to Zhang Weili, following it up with a camp for Tatiana Suarez, I think it actually works in Amanda Lemos' favor here against Mackenzie Dern. So give me Lemos here to win by knockout at 8,300.
Yeah, I'm thinking this is a Dern fight.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Look, this is one of those things where her takedowns are not great. And most jiu-jitsu practitioners are not. To me, I'm more interested in getting at this on the betting side of it. I understand what you're saying. If you're with Pete, Lemos is clearly someone to target in GPPs, but I was more looking at this from a betting aspect, kind of liking that plus money. I would almost look at Dern to win via decision prop out there in terms of that one. When you look over Prize Picks, they've got 3 props on Amanda Lemos, significant strikes 43.5, 10.5 fight time minutes, and a fantasy score of 75.5. I might look at that fight time. Maybe less than.
Yeah, I agree.
For some reason, I think this fight is. If I was going to attack it over there, I would probably look at the under 10.5, but not one of my favorite plays.
I think it's a sneaky play, and I'll tell you what, man. I've struggled all week with a lot of these picks, and it's tough for me to really pick a side just because of how competitive and how. There seems to be 2 outcomes in every single fight. Like one guy's going to win by this, one fighter's going to win by this, and I see it the same way here. It's a Dern sub or a Lemos KO TKO in my opinion. If Lemos goes out there and she shoots a takedown against Mackenzie Dern, that's just I can't do nothing about that. That's just zero fight IQ. Keep the fight standing at all costs.
Yeah, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to go where it puts Mackenzie Dern in her best potential to win this matchup?
All the time, though. You know this, though.
But I'll say when you look at where ownership projections are currently, obviously they're going to change with the fight change, with the heavyweights matchup that we'll briefly discuss here in a moment. Like if you were, you're not a 150 maxer, but you want to get in those big contests, like there is very much a thought process I have right now saying there are some fighters who are in the 20 to 25% ownership range, and you could get away from the chalk. And even though I think the main event is a priority, if you really wanted to make your lineup very much different, if you got away from the main event and you got rid of the 3 chalky fighters, you could come up with an interesting build.
Yeah, you definitely could. And, in reality, if there's 6 other fighters that get 100+ points and the main event winner gets 90 something, it just still might not be enough. You know what I mean? Like it's at the price point though where I do think it's like a 90% chance of being optimal. So but
of course, next up, we got a new heavyweight matchup as initially supposed to be Marcus Rogerio de Lima versus Justin Tafa. Justin Tafa pulls out of the matchup. His brother steps in. He has made weight at 249 pounds. Rogerio de Lima has also stepped on the scale. He's made weight at 261.5 pounds. Rogerio de Lima, obviously, we know what his salaries are right now, $8,500 on DK, $16 on FanDuel. We'll see where Junior Tafa is going to be at. And, Pete, there's not really, obviously, because you haven't had a chance to really break down film with this matchup could be, but I do think one of the more interesting aspects of this is the fact of Junior was preparing to take on a grappler in Carl Williams.
Yeah, I think that helps his case, right? It definitely helps his case. I do think that Junior is actually a very good striker. He's a very good striker. He got fraud checked in a couple matchups. But that doesn't mean that these guys can't make adjustments from camp to camp. It doesn't mean that they can't come back with a better game plan or fix their weaknesses. I can't believe we're having Junior Tafa step in, which is quite surprising. But he has crazy power. He does have crazy power. I probably like him up at heavyweight a little bit better. The fight against Muhammad Usman, the takedowns were the difference. I almost think that I might be leaning towards Tafa here. I got to tell you, I think that preparing for Carl Williams really helps him in this matchup. Sound kind of like how I was saying with Tatiana Suarez matchup for Amanda Lemos. I think he's the better striker than Rogerio de Lima. I think Rogerio de Lima hits hard as hell, but I actually think that he's been knocked out in the regional scene, and then obviously just knocked out against Eric Lewis. If he can keep this fight standing, I think that Tafa can actually win a decision or stop him here. So, man, I'll have to look back into the film, but knee-jerk reaction, I think I'm leaning Tafa.
Yeah, and one of the questions were if there were odds are out, and I was just looking maybe see if DraftKings Sportsbook has put anything out yet on this one. They do not have a line out yet on this one.
What a mess. The issue is if he comes at a broken price tag, like I would think they would just swap the 7,700 for 7,700. If he comes anything less than that, then I think it's very hard to get away from him.
I mean, what if he's 7,000?
Yeah, we are missing a 7,000 fighter.
I mean, that to me, it becomes kind of the interesting one with that one. And we'll see what Prize Picks, how they changed their props on this one as well. Next up, we got Nakamura taking on Vera. Nakamura, a 13-1 betting favorite. On the other side, Vera, plus 750. Nakamura, 9,600 DK, $23 on FanDuel. Vera, 6,600 DK at $8 on FanDuel, Pete.
Yeah, so I like Rinya Nakamura a lot. I think that he's one of the brightest prospects in the sport. Unbelievable wrestling. Striking is a work in progress, but his striking is very dangerous. He has plenty of quick wins on his record, and you saw that against Toshiyama Kazama, who decided to blitz him and try to bang with him, and he ended it in 33 seconds. You saw against Fernie Garcia where he just put on a clinic, man. 4-4 in the takedown department, and had basically 10 minutes of control time. Didn't score the best at 85. He's going up against Carlos Vera here, who coming off the Ultimate Fighter, pretty old guy for the Ultimate Fighter. But I'll tell you one sneaky thing about Carlos Vera is that he used to or still belongs to 50-50 Jiu-Jitsu, which is a big leg lock heavy gym, obviously. Okay, Ryan Hall's gym. So there's a possibility that in a weird scramble, maybe he catches Nakamura completely blindsided with a heel hook, but I think the chances are less than 5%. I think that Nakamura rolls here. Amazing wrestler against a jiu-jitsu guy with zero striking. I think Nakamura is one of the best spend-ups on the entire slate, and it's pretty obvious.
Yeah, it's very obvious, and I think if you can find the space to put him in your lineup, I definitely want to get there in terms of that one. And you look over at Prize Picks. 37.5 significant strikes, 7.5 fight time minutes, 2.5 takedowns, and 112.5 fantasy score.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that going over that fantasy score.
I do too. I do too, and that's ballsy, but I do.
Yeah. Next up, we got Mingyang taking on Ribeiro. Ribeiro plus 105 minus 125 for Zhang. Zhang 8,400 DK, $15 on FanDuel, and for Ribeiro, he's 7,800 on DK and $15 on FanDuel. Pete.
Yeah, flip a coin, Jason. I mean, honestly, who's going to land first in this situation? The under 1.5's juiced like crazy. Zhang Mingyang and Brendson Ribeiro. Both of these guys have been knocked out numerous times and finished striking and via submission. So, and they both are crazy aggressive. We've seen Zhang Mingyang go out there and blitz his opponents, with reckless abandon. And he has sub 1 minute wins in multiple contests now. Brendson Ribeiro was a massive underdog on Dana White's Contender Series. He puts his chin down and he throws counter shots. Throws a very, very hard right hand down the middle, but throws wide swinging hooks, kind of like how Carlston Harris throws his shots as well. And he's been knocked down and he's been put in bad positions. I think the X factor here is if Zhang Mingyang wrestles offensively, I think that he's probably the better grappler of the two from a wrestling standpoint. And I'm actually going to side with Zhang Mingyang. I could see the Brendson and Barrow coming through as another underdog. Was priced as a ridiculous underdog on Dana White's Contender Series. It's really, it's a very volatile fight, the most volatile on the entire slate. But I'm going to side with Zhang Mingyang. I do think that defensively, at least his hands come back a little bit better than what I'm seeing. So I'm going to be picking Zhang Mingyang to win.
Yeah, I'm with you over there. And by the way, the fight time prop over on Prize Picks is 4.
Yeah, that's kind of what it seems like. This fight's going to be over.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Next up, we got Josh Quinlan taking on Danny Barlow. Barlow minus 210 plus 175 for Quinlan. Quinlan $7,500 on DK, $12 on FanDuel. And for Barlow, he's $8,700 on DK and $19 on FanDuel, Pete.
Yeah, so we have a guy in Danny Barlow who has a phenomenal left hand. And left hand to God. He sits there and he throws combinations with 50 left hands in a row. And guess what? He's very good at it. And he steps back and he knows his range really well. The one worry I have is his grappling, which I think, was shown in one of his regional fights that he's not the best in that department. But if he can get back to his feet and get back to the range, the striking range, he can pick apart a lot of people from the outside. He has very good volume, very, very devastating power for the division, and great speed. I think Josh Quinlan is a little too slow for this matchup. I think that he's kind of like throwing through mud, and shots come out really slow. When they land, they're powerful. The best part of this fight for him to take the fight is to the mat. He needs to put Danny Barlow on his back and attempt to utilize that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He attempted against Trey Waters, went 1 of 8 in the takedown department, had only 54 seconds of control time. If he takes Danny Barlow down, I think that's his easiest path to victory. And he talked about in an interview making adjustments from that last fight to this fight. I can't tell you if he's going to do it. I actually think on the outside he's going to struggle. He's going to reach. He's going to close the distance, and he's going to crash right into a left hand. Does he get knocked out? I'm not sure. But I think that Danny Barlow is going to sting him enough to keep him away. So Danny Barlow is going to be the pick at 8,700. And I think he's going to be pretty popular. But if I bet Josh Quinlan, I'm going to be betting him via submission.
Yeah, my scary thing with Quinlan is just kind of how this everything has unfolded with him in the UFC, right, from the Contender Series to the failed drug test and how he did his official UFC debut. So that's the concern I have with Josh Quinlan. By the way, Samuel, I appreciate the super chat. I always appreciate those super chats when they come into the podcast here. Of course, also we've got the offers from Stochastic you can take advantage of as well. That's another great way to show your support for what me and Pete do here on the Fight HQ podcast. Next up, we got Elliot and Woodburn. Elliot is a minus 320 betting favorite, plus 255 for Woodburn. Elliot, 9,300 on DK, $22 on FanDuel, and Woodburn, 6,900 on DK and $9 on FanDuel, Pete.
Yeah, so I'll tell you, Oban Elliott, for a massively priced favorite, I just don't like the line. I don't like the line at all. I think offensively, when he grapples, he could put his opposition in bad spots. I don't think he's all that good, though. I don't. He was getting beat up in the Dana White's Contender Series fight in a moment, and then his opponent gassed out, and he was able to take over late. He does, deal with adversity well as far as just being tough. He has heart. He's tough. But, from a skill standpoint, I don't think he's a great striker. I don't think his strength of schedule is anything spectacular as well. The 2 times he fought decent competition, he lost in both of them. And he was actually getting out-wrestled in one, and then he got ground and pounded in the other. Do I think Val Woodburn's good, Jason? No, I wouldn't label him good. But what I would label him as powerful, dangerous, muscle-bound, and very strong. What happened in the Bo Nickel fight, 38 seconds, doesn't show how good he is. I still don't think he's going to win here against Oban Elliott. I think Oban Elliott's going to win a decision, and utilize some cage control and attempts to get him to the mat. But, if Woodburn lands a big shot, I would not be surprised about seeing Oban Elliott get knocked down as he has in numerous fights throughout his regional career. And then it could be a situation where like Woodburn lands a knockdown, maybe two, and then a couple shots, and you got the punt of 6,900 Woodburn in a loss in a fight that most likely goes the distance, possibly helping you get to the nuts as far as a high-end, top-end, crazy fantasy, producers. You punt all the way down to 6,900 Val Woodburn. I mean, it allows you everything, everything under the sun, unless Tafa, Junior Tafa comes in here, under that range or close to it. If he comes at 7,000, I'd much rather pivot from a Woodburn dart throw to a Tafa dart throw. So we'll have to see how the slate shapes out. But I do think that the disrespect's pretty far, and I think there's a massive gap. I think there should be like an 86 to a 76 type of salary range. But Oban Elliott will probably still win a decision just because of his work rate and his pace that he possesses. But I'm telling you, from a complete dart throw, I don't hate the Woodburn KO.
And you look over at Prize Picks, they've got a fight time of 10 minutes. They have 2 takedowns for Elliott, a fantasy score of 98.5, and then a significant strike prop of 39.5. And I mean, look, this is, if I was going to play anything, I think I would go the under 10 fight time minutes.
I just don't see how he does it. Like, I don't think Oban's going to knock him out, because I watch his striking. I mean, you can get better from camp to camp.
Yeah.
I think his best path is clearly take him down and submit him. Maybe like with a rear naked choke, arm triangle, some type of choke, and just put him to sleep. But I mean, I'm thinking decision, but Prize Picks might not be.
Yeah. The first fight of the night, which by the way, I was kind of surprised to see this is the first fight of the night. I would have thought it'd been later on in the fight card. You got Andrea Lee taking on Miranda Maverick. Maverick a minus 185 betting favorite, plus 155 for Andrea Lee. Lee 7,300 on DK, $12 on FanDuel. Maverick 8,900 on DK and $17 on FanDuel, Pete.
My man, I'm telling you, I got some weird picks this week, and it's either going to be really good or really bad, but I'm picking Andrea Lee here. I am. I think the value's there. I think that the value is there on Andrea Lee. You look at her strength of schedule, it's completely different than what Miranda Maverick has done. Like, it really is. My issue is if Miranda Maverick chains 4 or 5 takedowns en route to a ton of control time to stifle Andrea Lee's game. Totally possible and probably going to happen, right? But like Priscilla Cachoeira, Jasmine Jasudavicius, Shannon Young, Sabina Mazo, Blanchfield Barber, Robertson, Jojua versus Andrea Lee, who has fought Natalia Silva, Barber, Araujo, Calvillo, Shevchenko, Modafferi, Murphy, Calderwood, Montana De La Rosa. Like, beating Montana De La Rosa, who I think is a hell of an offensive wrestler, I think that is, even if it's really aged and it's back in 2019, I just feel like there's a path to victory for her beating Miranda Maverick, who is a overblown favorite in this matchup, in my opinion. I just don't see. She's been a favorite in every single fight, Jason. She's been a favorite in every single fight. Jojua, Robertson, Barber, Blanchfield, Mazo, Young, Jasudavicius, and Cachoeira. Vegas loves Miranda Maverick, or they want everybody to love Miranda Maverick. Whereas I actually think that the value is on Andrea Lee. I think that she's going to throw. She's the better striker of the two. She throws at a higher volume, and I actually can see her, stifling some of Miranda Maverick's attempts. And she can also offensively wrestle. I feel like people aren't taking that into consideration. I mean, she took Macy Barber down 5 times, Shevchenko 3 times. That doesn't say much. She took down Araujo once. I just think it's going to be a dogfight, and I'm going to lean towards the underdog in Andrea Lee, priced at 7,300. I think she's solid value.
I'm on the other one on this one. I like Miranda Maverick in this position, and you know me, I don't love to play the first fight of the night, but like as I'm thinking about it, and more of the thought process of multi-entry GPPs and going, okay, I want to get away from these chalk numbers that are out there. And I look at someone like a Miranda Maverick and I go, I see the grappling upside where she could rack up a ton of points with grappling. And that's why, like, just looking for a little bit of a leverage spot, that's why I would look at Miranda Maverick in this one. By the way, her takedown prop on Prize Picks is 2.5, fantasy score 78.5, and a significant strike of 50.5. If you tell me this fight plays out on the feet, Pete, Yeah, I think Andrea Lee's got a really good shot to pull the upset off. But I'm thinking that Miranda Maverick's just going to be able to get the takedowns.
I don't disagree. I think she is going to get the takedowns. I hope that Andrea Lee is able to get back to her feet and make this competitive. The number for me is I think she's going to land 4 takedowns. So I think the 2.5 is a bargain. Take the more on Miranda Maverick over more than 2.5 takedowns.
Let's get into our straight up fight picks. Then we'll get into listener questions. The main event. I keep going back and forth on this one.
Me too, bro. Tough week.
I love Volk. How do you not love Volk? I got to go with history here. I think we're talking end noon tomorrow. Give me Topuria.
Okay, I'm going to lean towards the vet. I'm going to lean towards Volk.
Co-main event is another one I keep going back and forth on. Give me Whittaker, but I think the fight's much closer than the betting odds.
Fair. Very fair. I'm still going to stick with Costa, though.
I would love to pick Geoff Neal, but I just think Ian Garry gets it done.
Ian Garry.
I will go Merab Dvalishvilli.
Merab.
Give me Hernandez, but I don't mind the dog shot in Kopylov.
Agreed. Hernandez.
I'm going to go Mackenzie Dern. Gets the upset.
Amanda Lemos.
All right. The Lima and Junior Tafa fight.
I mean, that news just dropped on us.
I got to watch some film more. I mean, my gut says you take Rogerio to Lima. But I think if you're looking, we'll see what the betting odds are and what the salaries are. It could be a very interesting punt play in Junior Tafa.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
I like Kenya Nakamura.
Yeah, Nakamura, big time.
I will go coin flip fight here, but give me Zhang.
Yep, give me Zhang as well.
I'll go Barlow.
Give
me Elliott.
And
then give me Maverick.
Give me Lee.
All right, so I'm going to kind of go through, start with our questions in Discord, of course. Totally free to join. Great conversation we have over there in Discord. Let's see here. First up, we got favorite core plays. Look, I mean, main event, that's got to be a core play for you. Then I look at Hernandez Kopylov and more Anthony Hernandez being a core play just because of that grappling upside. And then if you can get to him price wise, I really like to get to Nakamura.
I love Nakamura. Nakamura is going to be a priority. I mean, a lot of times how I like to build my lineups is I like to find like 1, maybe 2 fighters that I feel extremely confident in to get the win. And it's Rinya Nakamura's number 1. I still got to put my finger on who's number 2 because that's the hardest part is finding that second fighter you are like so confident about.
Favorite inside the distance fights / fighters. I would kind of just going from the bottom up. I would say Quinlan Barlow is one that sticks out to me. Zhang and Ribeiro would be another one to me. I would it's low level heavyweight. Rogerio de Lima and Junior Tafa will probably be another one. Lemos and Dern, I think, is a sneaky inside the distance type fight.
Yeah, I think it's sneaky as well.
Yeah. Any other fights that you like inside distance?
I think that I really think it's the Zhang Ribeiro fight, as you mentioned. I think it could be a long night. These fights don't start till 6:30. I'm feeling a lot of late finishes or decisions.
I am not seeing what time is lock here.
I think it's 6:30. Bro. That's late as hell. That's too late for me. I know I'm getting old.
Yes, you're getting old. Yeah, lock time is 6:30 tomorrow.
That's late, dude. That's because it's pay-per-view. 10
Correct,
o'clock. Yeah. It's gonna be freaking.
You've been used to these 4 p.m. Lock times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't worry, we got some early ones come. Let's see. Actually, well, next week's UFC is at 7 p.m. lock time, but then the March 2nd is a 1 p. lock time. That was a card that was supposed to be in Saudi Arabia.
Daytime MMA.
Favorite live dogs. Just kind of going down the list. I will say Costa, Cejudo.
I think that so many dogs are barking. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, really, there's like 5 of them.
Yeah. Punt plays for me. I would say Paulo Costa, Geoff Neal, Roman Kopylov.
I love it. And then for me, the ultimate punt play would be like a Woodburn just to do enough in a loss.
Fights with the best decision odds. I have not had to actually go and look at the actual decision props here, but I think there's some fights you definitely got to look at going to the distance. I would say Whittaker, Costa, Neal, Garry, Dvalishvilli, Cejudo would be my top 3.
Don't you think that like Costa should be having more finishes than he does? Because like it's very surprising. I mean, like he had 4 in a row when he started, and then it's he hasn't found that mark.
Over under on finishes 7.5. Give me the under.
Under long night.
Value plays under 8K on DraftKings. 3 core plays on DraftKings. When you look at value underneath 8K. It's a lot of the same names we've kind of mentioned already. You know, but so I mean, I think you look at Costa, Geoff Neal. I don't know if Cejudo really scores well in a 3-round decision. Kopylov, there's obviously we've talked about the ceiling there. We'll see what Junior Tafa's salary ends up being. Ribeiro may be another interesting under 8K option.
I would agree.
And we mentioned the core plays. To me, the core plays for me, it's either guy in the main event, Anthony Hernandez and Nakamura would be my core plays.
I like it.
Favorite captain. This is I was actually kind of looking at some of the captain odds a little bit earlier here. I think I'm looking at someone probably earlier on in the card, not necessarily later on the card, because I think that's where people are going to get a little, the Nakamura captain ownership is just absolutely insane. Amanda Lemos could be a very interesting captain play.
At least you can guarantee that you're going to get a good score in the captain. Because the worst is if you get a middling score in the captain. Yeah. Like for last night for my showdown for NBA, it's just like I had everything else perfect, but the guy in captain just had a mediocre performance. You need a top-end guy.
Leverage and value plays on FanDuel for a single entry. So Costa at $12, I think it is a nice little play to put there. By the way, let's see here. Just got the DraftKings email. Let's see. Do we have a salary? We do not. Just let you know that the Rogerio de Lima Justin Tafa fight is off. Kopylov at $11 to me is another interesting one. Those are probably the value plays I really look at on DraftKings. Looking at ownership, maybe a punt on Val Woodburn.
I mean, really, it's just about getting at least 4 to 5 right.
Yeah.
If you have one guy who sucks, sometimes it doesn't even matter.
Next up, Tristan, the best leverage play, Ian Garry or Robert Whittaker?
Yes.
Best takedown upside,
Anthony Hernandez.
Yeah. Dvalishvilli, I think, is another one. But the one thing about Dvalishvilli, he doesn't necessarily keep people down. So he could rack up a lot of points with takedowns there. Rank the 9K options. So we have 4 9K options. Elliott, Nakamura, Garry, Whittaker. I would rank them as 1 Nakamura, 2 Whittaker, 3 Garry, 4 Elliott.
Yeah, I'm going to go Nakamura, Garry, Whittaker, Elliott. Elliott could be this guy that, like, if you've watched him live or you train with him, you might know that he's going to smash this slate, but I can't just say he's going to. You know what I mean? That's a big price tag for a guy making his UFC debut.
Kudos to Woody over in Discord. Found this on Twitter. Fight Odds puts out a line of Rogerio de Lima minus 250, plus 210 for Junior Tafa.
Who's plus 210 about on this card? Plus
Kopylov is plus 200. That's 7,400.
He's gonna be 73. Okay, it's gonna be like 73 or 7,200 if I had to guess. Unless they do a swap. If they really do a 1-for-1 swap where he's at 7,700 as a plus 210 underdog, then the value's on Lima. You know what I mean? That's pretty clear. But if they put him where he's supposed to be, and then I do think it makes Tafa pretty interesting.
Just kind of scrolling through the YouTube comments, make sure we didn't miss any questions in there. If you want to slide one in right now, we'll get your question in right before we end the show here. Of course, we appreciate everyone tuning in for this episode of the Fight HQ podcast, where you watch us here on YouTube. If you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that thumbs up button. It truly does help us out a ton. Samuel made a comment about Andrea Lee's Fight IQ being very questionable at times.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, her IQ in general is questionable. Look who she married. So I'm not a big fan of her husband at all. So yeah.
How are you going to take in the fights tomorrow night? I haven't quite decided if I'm going to sit on the couch and watch them, if I'm going to go out and watch them. I haven't quite made that decision yet.
I take fights in, Jason, and it's at home. I don't enjoy watching with nobody. I really don't like. It's if you watch fights with me, then you're like really close with me, because like outside my mom, my dad, and my girl, my daughter, who actually loves watching the fights, by the way, or like my girlfriend's family, like very few people I watch the fights. I just don't enjoy it. I'm way too locked in.
By the way, you know what came with my memories yesterday?
What?
The time we did a show from the Mohegan Sun.
Oh, dude, we got to post it. We got to post it in our Discord so people could see how long I've been grinding at this dream.
The infamous Pete lied to me about his game plan.
I didn't lie to you about the game plan. I mean, my God, this guy just gave me the underhooks. How the hell am I not supposed to use them? No, I told Jason I can't. Let me push back. The takedown was there, too, so, and you know it.
I know. Well, I mean, look, it's you have to take what's presented to you. Even if it's you didn't expect it to present itself to you.
I mean, based on how history has gone, it was probably not, like everybody else on the outside is like, what the hell is he doing? But like, I made a lot of adjustments, and that's why that's the hardest thing about MMA. And I was talking to my dad because I've been killing it with NBA. He's like, MMA seems to be the toughest one that you play, and it's like, Dad, it is. Like, it's really hard.
Yeah. Predicting
fights, never mind trying to predict scores. If you're doing a 150 max, you can, you can, possibly set yourself up with an optimizer. But like, if you tell me you hand built the optimal lineup, that's freaking impressive. That's impressive.
Yeah, it is. By the way, this comment from Dexter in the chat, I am just laughing my ass off. I can't sweat hundreds of dollars in public. I'm just locked in. Plus, I can't rip my bong in the bars. Hey, Dexter, I'll say this. I've been in spots where, no one's going to rip a bong. They're ripping the pin, though.
Oh, my God. That's so up here, it's like recreational now. So, like, it's everywhere. And
oh, really?
I got no problem with it. I mean, it don't bother me. Nobody bothers me. Let everybody live their own life as long as nobody, you know what I mean? Like, people get drunk. It's way worse. You know what I'm saying? So, it's a completely different thing. But, yeah, I mean, you got to be in your element to enjoy the fights. So,
yeah,
I'll watch it with friends and all that, but like, I hate being. I'm such a homebody now, especially now being a dad.
Yeah,
where it's just like I just want to chill.
Well, the thing I enjoy about going out and watching the fights is just seeing people's reactions, and like it has told me more about the MMA viewing audience, than sitting at home and having Twitter in front of you. I talked about this on my podcast a couple weeks ago, and I said, like, there's certain fighters that either you thought they were a star or fighters that you didn't think they were a star. I remember, like, last year, the two fighters that really stuck out to me was, and I usually go to the same spot to watch UFC events, is how much fans love Volk, as a non-American. And the other one was Charles Oliveira, how much people love Charles Oliveira.
Yeah, I mean, everybody loves Charles now. I mean, I don't blame him. I mean, he's incredible. He's a great guy to like.
It's one of those things, though. It's like that type of atmosphere tells you a lot about what the audience likes and does not like. I mean, there's been times you sit there and, fights going on that, we're really into, but you look around, it's like, man, no one's paying attention.
Yeah, it happens a lot, man. It happens a lot. And I think the reason I like being home so much is because, like, ever since I was 16, I've worked like every Friday and Saturday. in the club
Yeah.
and bar scene. So the last thing I want to do is go out. You know what I mean? I just really, really value being home now.
Oh, no. Yeah, very much so. Yeah. Joshua mentions it's hard to live bet at the bar. Well, I mean, if you got your sports betting app, it's really easy.
Yeah. I mean, I can't remember how it was. I mean, I actually had to drive into different states to try to place bets. And now I got it pretty easy now. I just sit there and flip open the phone and boom.
Yeah. And live betting is such the way to go in MMA. It's such
Absolutely.
the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'll live bet NHL games. If I see it, it's like third period, one team's down 1 goal and it's got some good plus money on it. I've done that with the Lightning a couple times this year and it's worked out really well for me.
Yeah. I don't even know anything about hockey. There's something about an open net thing. And you got the whole, actually they tag somebody in and then what the hell is going on? They got another guy. I don't know what's going on.
Mitch, we'll finish on this question here from Matt where he says, Pete, you called the Volk head kick last time. Got any calls this time?
I appreciate that, Matt. I did call the head kick. I don't know. I really don't. And I'm pretty transparent. I'm not just going to pull something out and tell you guys. I don't know. I see it going one of two ways. Volk getting caught on the exit or Volk wearing down Topuria over time and ground and pound being a little too much in a dominant decision or a late finish.
I mean, look, I'm expecting a great fight tomorrow night, so looking forward to watching it. Of course, as always, we appreciate you tuning in for this episode of the Fight HQ podcast. Of course, great way to show your support for the channel. Totally free to do. Just hit that subscribe, hit that thumbs up button. If you're listening on the podcasting channel, leave a rating and review. That does help us out a ton. And of course, we will be back next week as we have got we got a double header next week of UFC action, Pete, or not, I say MMA action. Earlier on the day, we got the PFL Bellator event from Saudi Arabia. Then at night, we've got the Fight Night card from Mexico City of Brand Royval and why is their name stick my head? Oh, Brand Moreno.
Oh, okay, there we go.
I was like,
you're on your own, dude. You're on your own. I don't know. But yeah, I know, and we got great MMA action coming up. We still don't have a UFC 300 headliner. I almost feel like it's going to be a disappointment.
They're saying it's going to be, Dana said to Kevin Iole this week that he's going to announce it at the post-fight press conference, which I thought was kind of an odd call by Dana White, that they would not just do it. I would think they're going to announce it on the broadcast.
I would think so too.
I think the likely scenarios is it's Leon Edwards, Belal Muhammad.
It's not no 300 main event. It's... Whatever they've hyped it up.
The only thing
that it's not going to be good.
I mean, look, I think that if it's not a Conor fight announcement, and I think that the right questions are not being asked to Dana White about Conor McGregor, because let's just say the rumblings is it's a contract issue. They're trying to get Conor McGregor to a new contract. He has 2 fights left on his current deal. I think you can understand why maybe Conor wants to try to fight this thing out.
I read right through that thing too. I read right through all that, and it was pretty obvious that, it's kind of crazy, the deflection in this business.
I mean, the
deflection in this business is crazy.
There was some speculation about Hamzat, but it sounds to me that it could be a visa issue in relation to getting him into the United States.
And he said something about Ramadan too. So,
yeah, I think it's Ramadan maybe ends the week prior. Maybe I want to say.
Bilal's the only fighter I know that's fought through it.
Oh yeah. Oh, Belal is he's ready to go. But yeah, I think overall the likelihood is people are going to be disappointed with the UFC 300 main event. If you tell me it's Leon Edwards, Belal Muhammad, just make Gaethje Holloway the main event.
Half the 299s should have been on 300. So, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, they screwed themselves with that. I don't know what they were anticipating, but they got so many of these other big cards. They should have just pivoted and put it all towards 300. But hey, it's no big. He wants it to be the greatest card ever.
Yeah, I know they already came out and said Garbrandt versus Figueiredo will be the very first fight of the night.
That is insane.
Yeah,
I will say that
it's gonna be a stat card, no doubt about it.
That's crazy. Shoot.
Yeah. But that is going to do it for this episode of the Fight HQ podcast. We'll be back here next week. As always, we appreciate tuning into this episode. And let's hope for some great fights tomorrow night. Talk to y'all next week.